This is Lynn M. Dixon, the author of Boston and Beyond. I will be reading from the chapter called Concord. I thought about it after viewing the new movie of Little Women from 2019. The tour ended and Phoenix paused by doing some finger exercises. She had written a lot, but he was one of her favorite writers, speaking of Emerson. She did not want to miss anything. She walked a short distance away and soon arrived at the Orchard House. She saw the large brown clapboard-type structure, and the colorful sign let her know that she had arrived at the home of the Alcott family. It was not quite time for the tour to begin, so she went into the bookstore and made a few purchases. She went out into the garden and sat on an empty bench. Fortunately for her, she was alone. The flowers were in bloom, and she breathed deeply as she concentrated on writing a quick message to her mother on a pretty postcard that she had just bought. She knew that this card would mean a lot to her mother because she used to read parts of Little Women to Phoenix when she was growing up. These visions of the family stayed with Phoenix, and though she liked all of the girls, she most identified with the spunky Joe. Phoenix's time in this peaceful space helped her to envision what life must have been like during that era. She checked her watch after a while and saw that it was time for the tour. She entered the Orchard House and stood in a group of about 7 tourists. The docent was another impressive young woman who again spoke from memory as she told about the lives of the Alcott family. They started in the living room, and there sat a huge painting of a beautiful young African-American woman that was displayed on an easel. It served as a welcoming beacon for Phoenix, and it was painted by May, the family artist. It was probably a slave girl, but in the eyes of May, she was a beauty. Whenever May ran out of canvas, she painted on paper bags or even on the walls of the house. We later saw the walls filled with her paintings when we went upstairs. There was also a piano in the living room, and Phoenix imagined an amiable family that functioned in myriad ways. The girls had active imaginations and often put on plays and dressed in costumes. The docent showed them the couch where Louisa May wrote. She was said to be temperamental, and when she did not want to be disturbed, she sat the couch pillow up in a certain position, and others knew not to speak to her. She would write for 8 or 9 hours non-stop, and when one hand was tired, she used the other. As it turned out, her writing sold, and she became the family breadwinner, which later took its toll on her health. The father, Branson, was a great thinker and an unorthodox teacher who opened varied experimental schools. However, he was not quite able to make financial ends meet. He was also an important man in Concord and brought many interesting people to town. It was said that if he wanted to engage in a conversation with someone, he would hand them an apple to open up the discussion. The family was involved in the abolitionist movement, and the girls saw runaway slaves on occasions. Their mother, Marmee, would hang out quilts on the clothesline with arrows pointing in certain directions. This was her silent way of telling the runaways which way to go for safety. Phoenix took notes again and listened intently as they moved through the house. She remembered the kitchen area and could visualize the women talking and preparing meals. The father had built one shelf that was easily accessible with a movable shelf for Marmee and the girls. When the tour was over, Phoenix headed back towards the train station. It was about a 15-minute walk, and she noticed that the area seemed to be grassy and wooded, but pretty. A light, misty rain fell as she walked, and she did not have an umbrella. She panicked a little, and a woman in the car slowed down. Phoenix asked her how far she was from the train station, and the woman said, "About 5 minutes."